Martins. I've been with you since 6 a.m. And for the next half hour, I have got Olakunle in the studio with me. Good morning, Olakunle. He's sporting a fresh cut, which you can check out up on youtube.com/, smooth 981 FM Lagos. Hello, Mr. Fresh Cut. Just in time for Christmas, I see.
Exactly. I went to have my Christmas haircut. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, listeners, wherever you are.
Great.
Compliments of the season to all of us.
There we go. Great to have you on the show. What we're going to do is open this conversation wider and get your thoughts on WhatsApp 0809 440 981. Up on YouTube, you can go to the live chat and leave your comment there, or you can take things over to Twitter by using the hashtag freshlypressed981 as we get into the stories of the day. And the first things first is what we're going to be talking about is a reversal and oh no, no, not a reversal, a revising of a policy from the Vanguard. Cash withdrawal. CBN revises individuals' limits to 500,000 naira weekly. This is from the 100,000 naira weekly that had been put out in a directive on the 6th of December. It's about 2 weeks later, and now we're hearing from the CBN that they've revised the cash withdrawal limit for individuals to 500,000 naira weekly and for corporates to 5 million naira weekly, up from 500,000 naira weekly previously. What would you make of this? What feels like an about turn, considering the fact that we've been hearing from the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, taking a pretty strong stand and saying there's no going back. Although we might revise it at some point later on, but who knew later would be so soon?
Uh, well, I think that the CBN governor had never closed the door on this revision. He said that much.
Mm,
What he's been adamant on is that the time frame is not going to be reviewed, and that the policy is not going to change in a long time, that they're going to maintain this push towards achieving a cashless um, policy as much as possible. And just as I jokingly said that just before we came on, um, people had, even including myself, had worried about the 100,000 naira weekly limit for um, for individuals and 500,000 for corporates. And one can understand the reasoning behind all of this. Now that the amounts being reviewed to 500,000 for individuals and 5 million, I think that we should now complain less about the policy and um, worry more about how we can make it work. I'm not sure there are many of us Nigerians that have 500,000 naira to spend on a weekly basis
mm,
anyway.
mm.
That's not to impugn anybody, but it's almost like a statement of fact that's the situation where we are today. Even if we have it, I'm sure that we don't want to spend 500,000 in a week anyway. So we should worry more about how to make this policy work, not much more about why it will not work. And because of the attendant advantages that it might have, we don't have to go through all that again. We've discussed this at several different times. We should at least see the positives about this and try to work towards making it work. Why would it work? One of them is that the cost of printing our Naira notes is even more expensive than the face value of the note itself. So, for example, your 1,000 Naira note, it possibly costs us about 2,500 Naira to produce just one 1,000 Naira note, for example. I'm not saying that is the exact amount. So if we have to print less notes, then we can do a lot of our transaction electronically. It saves the country a lot of money. And to the fact also that these monies are not even printed here, as I understand, that they are printed from somewhere else. It's going to save us the foreign exchange that we don't also have. So there are so many things that these things will help us to achieve. Not to even talk, and we should focus on such things much more than the market people who don't have. What can we do to make the market people buy into this idea of electronic transfers? How can we improve the infrastructure required to ensure that failures of electronic transfers don't happen as much as it does today? How can we improve the response time of the banks in ensuring that when these failures happen, it can be it can be corrected within a few moments and so on and so on. So those are the things I want us to be discussing, not that it will not work.
Okay. Just to put it out there, we actually had our new Naira notes printed locally. Yeah,
Okay,
so it was a
if
big
yes, okay,
thing.
so that's good news. So that also helps us to save money. So those are the things that for me are important in this matter.
Hmm. All right. We and I suppose one thing I'd like to ask you about is, would you think that, or would you say that there, with us seeing this kind of pretty quick turnaround or pretty quick shift, that there might have been some political implications behind this because there were allegations of plots to raise terrorism charges and whatnot against the CBN governor. Um, do you think that, okay, yes, this is the CBN governor who said, okay, I'm trying to fight corruption and I'm trying to fight money laundering, but apparently it can fight back as well?
Absolutely, that's a consideration, but I'm not a politician and I don't want to subject my thoughts to conspiracies around those things. I'd rather look at the
Mm-hmm.
subject matter from the realism that we exist within. We already know what they've said that they want to achieve, what the CBN wants to achieve with this policy.
Mm.
Let's just stay within that and let's see how it works. Whatever it is, there are always, we are Nigerians, we always like to find a way around rules and laws. We always want to bend them to suit our peculiar circumstances, which we can always justify good or bad. But let's just look at it from the point that okay, this is like I've said, the advantages that are in so doing, and let's ride with that.
Mm.
Don't
But we
let
have to
us.
remember, like, only that nothing lives in isolation.
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay, let's move on now. From the Premium Times, reps urge federal government to include anti-corruption in primary and secondary school curricula. So this resolution followed a motion moved by the Speaker of the House, Femi Gbajabiamila, Aisha Duko of APC Gombe, and two others yesterday during plenary. And I'm going to read one thing that Mrs. Duko said. She said, one reason the fight against corruption has not achieved the desired objectives in the country is the absence of a deliberate national strategy to engage citizens from the early stages of their lives to identify, challenge, and defeat corrupt practices wherever they may exist or manifest. Would you say this is the move that we've been looking for to stop corruption in its tracks, perhaps? Making, I mean, is there some reason behind this that we need to make sure that even though people think, okay, yeah, I know what corruption is, we might not necessarily know all the ins and outs, and it's best to introduce it to people from an early age so that they can be a bit stronger in anti-corruption fights? Lakume.
I'm not a psychologist, but I'll start from this perspective. Okay, so 4 years ago, suddenly in Russia, something happened during the World Cup in Russia, and it was so sweet, and all of us were owing and eyeing about it. The Japanese came to the stadium after the game. They picked up their trash after them. The football team itself cleaned up their changing room after every game, right? They repeated the same thing this last World Cup that just ended, right? And all of us are owing and eyeing them that, so sweet, this and that and that. The culture the Japanese exhibited in those two instances I just gave were thoughts to them from childhood. So it was just normal things for them to do. While we were thinking that it was extraordinary, right? They were taught from childhood to see that in their country, the younger people look at the people ahead of them and they act the way they act.
Mm.
Now let's domesticate it to Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
So my first question is where we are today, who is going to teach this thing to these young people? Is it the teacher that just kept the red lights in traffic just there now and had his or her children in the car with him that saw him do that? Is he going to get to class and say, don't skip traffic lights? Is it the politician who takes what they call constituency allowance and the money disappears? Who is going to teach? Don't let us forget that children act, believe what they see more than what they hear. So For us to even have this policy, we the adults that want to teach it, we first have to change our ways.
Wait,
Who
luckily,
is
what I'm going to say is this, right? And I believe I have to put it out there. Yes, you talked about the politicians or the people who run red lights, but we have people who are active in the fight against corruption. We have civil societies. Are they not coming from the same people that we get? And by the way, this is not a generalize. Well, I mean, people like to generalize politicians, but even politicians, we have good politicians who came from the same people that run red lights. They're still the same people that pick up litter on the streets and make sure that other people pick up their litter as well, or go and pick it up after other people. We have different types of people within uh, the society.
I agree with you, but when we are speaking to this now is that we are going to develop a curriculum. I'm just trying to put um, a perspective to the whole thing so that we look at it all together. We recognize all that. I've had an issue that somebody threw a bottle out of his car driving ahead of me. I stopped, picked it up, drove up to the person, waved at him to wind down. He did. I threw the bottle back in his car. We have people who do that. We have people who pick and stuff. But in the majority, when we're talking about maybe 1 in 100, 10 in 1,000, the majority effects of these things are what we're going to see. I'm looking at a situation that this works. I pray it works. I pray that we're able to do this. It will be so wonderful to catch them young and teach our young children, our young people, how not to behave. But in the situation where we are today, the first worry you worry is the how and the who. So if we're able to define that, unfortunately, this report doesn't say the how and the who. That's why it was the first question that I raised. But on the look of it, on the total outcome of it,
Mhm.
the best place to catch them is at those young ages, to put in those minds, those young impressionable minds, these facts that these are the right things, these are the wrong things. Who will do it is left for us, the people who are moving this motion, the politicians, us the people who are hearing it, us the adults, all those of us that know that we can affect the life of children. We are the ones who are going to do this. So this is a challenge, a national challenge that the members of the House of Assembly are putting forward. And honestly, if you ask me, we ordinarily possibly don't need a legislation for this. We just probably need some form of an orientation, like what we had so many years back with war against indiscipline. It was not a legislation per se. It was like, okay, so this is what you need to do. If you don't do it this way, this is the punishment for not doing it that way. I mean, so and then you encourage people to buy into those ideas so much that legislation does not always solve problems.
Mm.
It only creates room for people to say that, okay, there is a law this way. Let me see the way I can bend that law and I can still do what I want to do the way I want to do it. So I think that much more of um, persuasion and conviction is what's going to work, not much more than legislation.
All right, let's take a look at your messages as they come in. The first one comes from Tony from Marine Beach, who says, with this review in withdrawal limits, I don't think there's any need for the CBN to appear before the reps anymore. If the reps insist on quizzing the CBN after this, then we know where they are going. They're surely not speaking for the Nigerian masses, but for themselves. And another message coming in from Shagun says, Nigerians used to be Oh, Nigerians used to be clean in the decades gone by. Now we have a largely filthy citizenry. We used to have civic studies. Oh, are we putting one on one together? Hmm. Sahid from Lagos says, I believe teaching from school will make a difference in respect of bad elements. You and I can be an ambassador of this. We can even volunteer to teach. And Sahid is talking
I
to
agree with
you,
him.
Olakunle.
I agree with him.
Mm. D from Alausa says excellent analysis, Lakunle, on teaching them young, and the older ones setting examples first and foremost. True, there are some exemplary adults, but very few and far between, and much fewer amongst politicians who are deemed leaders of the country. And that's the thing that I'm trying to say, right? And why I'm not necessarily throwing the story out of the bathwater is that okay, we know that, yeah, we have what people might see as a minority of people who do things like stop at the red lights and follow the laws and keep up with the spirits of the laws. But how do you then get it from the minority to the majority? Is it about taking it to school? But then again, also, if you do learn all of this in school, and school is a very protective environment, what about when you come out into the real world? I
Let
mean,
me
there's nothing worse than an idealist whose ideals have been shattered. Like I'm like,
yes, let me just quickly say that the best thing to do is therefore that 10% that do things right to commit themselves to become ambassador, like Said said, to win one person at a time. And then gradually that 10% will start shifting from 10 to 20 to, and then by the time we have a 50, 60, then we'll then start saying that we are there. So we should not act in isolation. We should act with the mind that we want to win others onto that thing. I'm not a legislation person per se in respect of things like this.
all right, and Aisha says we have to make the deliberate effort to bring it to the schools. It's a great idea. Every little drop will make an ocean, and we need to go back to compulsory environmental sanitation. Leaving adults to do it themselves isn't working. That one came with restriction of freedom of movement. Daisy says, I think Nigerians are programmed not to like nice things, but to complain about how things are not working, but yet we are our own worst enemy. Every time I see someone dropping litter, I call them out. More than twice, I've received unfavorable looks and insults. Hmm. All right. Let's move on now. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. This one in from Olakwasi Olatoragun says it can't cost more than the cost of money to print the money. What kind of economics is that? I don't think it does. We'll have to find the details of how much it costs, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Okay, let's move on now to our next story, which comes in from the Vanguard newspaper. Actually, we'll take two stories together, budget stories. The first one being that from the Vanguard, 10 days to New Year, Buhari raises 819.5 billion naira supplementary budget for damage control. He's written to the Senate seeking the approval of this sum for the 2022 fiscal year to address the various infrastructure destroyed by floods across the various states of the country. So he's looking at road infrastructure and then some projects that he said were critical in the water sector that cut across water supply, dam projects, and irrigation projects nationwide. So there's that. And then we also have the Senate, which is to pass the 2023 budget today. We heard at the close of plenary on Tuesday, Senate President Ahmad Lawan saying that today will be the day.
All right. So, starting from the second one, I think that this government, in the eight, seven budget presentations they've had, I think possibly the first one was the only one that wasn't passed before the new year kicked in. And even at that, I think twice during of those seven, the president went to the Senate to ask for the extension of the budget of the previous year into the new year. Okay, so with that background, they're requesting for the supplementary budget. I think could have gone into the budget that's supposed to be passed today. Anyway, this government is going to leave in or except that this the what this money is needed for is already been approved and it's already been actioned, particularly with the report that's attached to it about the dam projects, the roads that the floods that we recorded this year washed away and all that. Except that that is something that is already being done, and they're just appropriating money to pay for it, right? Except that, but if it's that it is in anticipation of fixing those things, I don't think that it is necessary to ask for a supplementary budget 10 days to the end of the year when it could easily fit into the budget for the next year, or it could ask the Senate to extend the budget of 2022 to a certain period in 2023, maybe to the end of first quarter of 2023. But this has been done. The Senate, of course, like they say, would want this to pass through, and I'm sure that this supplementary budget will probably be taken along with this one that the budget for 2023 that's to be passed today, and both of them will be passed. the most important thing for me in all of this is that all these things that we see, we need to see the effect of all these monies on ground. Okay, so what dam projects, where are they? What's the extent of damage because of the flooding? The roads that were washed away. Is it the federal government that is going to do it directly? Are they passing these monies to the states to execute on their behalf and so on? So these little details also helps to improve our confidence and trust in governance when we see things like this, and we don't think that it's a come and chop program that it's time to go, and then we need to just let these monies go out so that people can feed fat on them.
And from the Punch newspaper, Eastern Railway Corridor Project not feasible, says federal government. But then, if you go further into the story, it is before the president leaves office in May next year. So the federal government yesterday said it's just not going to be able to complete the narrow gauge Eastern Railway corridor before Mr. President leaves office because the foreign loans required to fund the project are no longer available. Lackingly.
For whatever reason that is, I think the Punch was just trying to sell his newspaper by carving the headline that way, like
Chopping
said,
it
they
in
chop
half.
it in half. When I first saw it, my chest caught small until I read until I read it. Like, what do they mean by not feasible? Now, so it's all about money and the little matter of um insecurity in the region, in some of the places where the track's supposed to pass through. Recall that also the Minister for Works, if 2 3 years ago, also complained about the same thing. The Where he was asked about the delays on the construction of the Enugu Port Harcourt road, he said that some settlements along the road attack contractors, they prevent them from working and so on. So it's the same thing here that the junior minister, the Minister of State for Transport, also reported here. Apart from the money, now it's supposed to be an 85-15% funding arrangement, 85 from foreign loan, 15 from the budget. To date, according to the minister, every work that has been done is being done based on the 15% counterpart funding from the budget. Now, to access the 85% from foreign loan is now not possible for now. So it's causing delays. So if that's where we are, we can then say that the target of at least getting from Port Harcourt to Enugu will be missed before May 23rd, May 2023. So what do we do? Should there be an increment in the budget, or should the government spend its own money on this in lieu of when that loan will come so that we can have this train line functional? Or should we leave it and then the one that's been done starts to deteriorate before the monies are found? Government needs to take some form of a hard decision on what to do, because we can't leave it where it is. We can't abandon the project. It's a lot of money that's been spent to date. We need to be creative about this. What is more important than what is not as important than this in the current budget that can be shelved until this project is done? So that kind of thought that we'll think that it's not just enough to paint the problem. Government should be able to say that we want to also look at it from this perspective. This is what we think we should do, because it's not just enough to say, okay, there's no money, then we're not doing it again. We have to find a way to solve that problem, and that's what I think the government should be telling us. So we have identified the problem. What is the proposed solution to the problem?
Hmm. All right, let's take some of your messages and then take see what other stories we can take before we end the show. This one in from Victor Shion says, enforcing not dropping litter in an already littered environment is a just cause with minimal impact. We need a change in national culture. As a people, culture is stronger from a people perspective rather than from an individual standpoint. And he says, "Oh, it's pure wickedness to all the road construction at VGC and a certain filling station causing terrible traffic around Aja. We need to be humane in doing things." And ah, B from Lucky came with Latin. B, let's see if I can get into this tongue twister. He says, liking your analysis this morning. And he says, it's another way to say in Latin, nemat dat cord non-habit. Did we get it right? Don't know. He says, I'm not amused about the Blue Line Rail because of our poor usage and maintenance culture, and this is not surprising given our high illiteracy levels and uncontrolled population. We should work to keep our population density low, i.e., two-child policy and tax on additional children. Yes, B, I feel like this is in your manifesto because you've said this before. Olumide from Lucky says, okay. Okay. Olumide from Lucky says, yesterday I needed to make a purchase of 270,000 naira from a shop without POS terminal, but they accepted bank transfers. My bank had an issue and was incapable of transfers, both the mobile app and even in the banking hall. Only withdrawing cash saved the day. Another customer's purchase was more expensive. We used the same bank. What would we have done if this good but poorly thought out policy was implemented? Ah, good but poorly thought. Okay, yeah. So questions. All
Same
right.
thing I said. That's the solution. That's what we should be looking to solve. Why those failures are happening and how quickly we can resolve them. Not that we shouldn't, because of that, we should not that because of that happens that we should not execute the policy.
So here's the thing. A fantastic policy can also be just as fantastic as it is in theory. In practice, it can be the opposite of fantastic. I can't think of the word now, but it can be the opposite if we do not have the enabling factors for it to achieve the greatness that it's supposed to achieve.
I
That's
agree.
it.
I agree. A policy is only good if at the end of the day it's it is not difficult to execute and either way. So
Good policies implemented badly are not good policies. Sorry.
absolutely, I agree.
All right, moving on. And now let's take a look at this next one. And looks like there might just be something for the. Oh, actually, let's see. For the let's take a look from this one. Business day. Night. Okay. Night. I'm trying to luckily. All right, we'll take this one in from the Vanguard. Federal government approves group life assurance for Nigeria police, and this is as the Federal Executive Council yesterday approved of various contracts cutting across the ministries of works and housing, environment, transportation, and police affairs. And the Minister of Police Affairs, Mohammed Maigari Dingyadi, said that the import of the hold on one second, said that the import of the memorandum that conveyed the request was to keep the police motivated and encouraged.
Some good news. You know how I feel about the way we've administered our police force in Nigeria all this while. I think that this is one of the things that we've always spoken about the police. That it's not enough to just put uniform on people, put gun in their hands, and expect them to be magicians. There has to be something in it for them to make them want to do the policing the way it should be done. So this is group life assurance. We've had instances that policemen have died in the course of ordinary duty, and it's been left largely into the hands of the state government or the beneficiaries of the police commissioner of that state or the IGP to have something done for those people's families. But now there's a group life assurance, which means that in the course of duty, anything that happens, it's going to be almost automatic. Just a letter from the police to say, okay, officer so and so died and so and so, and the money just already goes to the family of such person, the beneficiaries of such persons. So this is kind of things that we are expecting the police to get. This good training, good assurance, good accommodation wherever they live, to give them a life so that they can actually concentrate on doing their job and not worry about other things. We want a good police system, and good things don't come cheap. This one is a good one, and I hope that they can implement it as quickly as possible.
All right, and we have come to the end of the show. Thank you for all your messages. I think you know what. Let's talk. We'll be talking about building national culture come 9 o'clock during Lagos Talks. It should be an interesting one. But before that, it is going to be entertainment inside the grapevine at 8:15 as we send Olakunle off into Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining me for this past half hour. And please make sure you find him at Lakunle70 up on Twitter. As you've been enjoying his analysis so much, go ahead and connect with him up on social media. All right, Olakunle, have a fantastic Christmas, and I'll see you next week.
Next week.
Yes.
See
All right.
you.
Okay. There we go.
My dad has called me like 3 times.